Innovators! Welcome to Who's Next, Innovators Edition, powered by the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. I'm your host, Martin G. Martin II, the Senior Program Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, also known as I&E. The Thurgood Marshall College Fund champions the ambitions of scholars and innovators of HBCUs and PBIs to produce the next generation of top talent. Who's Next Innovators Edition aims to highlight Black entrepreneurs and HBCU innovators through educational and authentic conversations. I'm excited to invite a few of our I&E alum to kick off these conversations, so let's see who's next.
Very special guest today, Vinasia Miles.
Yes.
She is a proud Cheney alum.
The first HBCU.
Yes,
Make sure they know.
The first one.
Yes, proud HBCU alum. Also co-founder of Forbes for the Culture.
Yeah, Forbes the Culture.
Forbes the Culture,
Yes.
excuse me. And as well as a current professor.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
Wow.
super excited to learn more and hear more about your experience, and definitely tapping into how did you navigate and maneuver within these different spaces. I'm pretty sure networking was really important in that. So really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today, and really excited that you're here, and an honor for you to be here.
Yes, it's an honor and a blessing to be here as well with you wonderful ladies. This was a shock to me to be called on for this, so I'm honored to be a part of the conversation.
A shock, because the way that Nina Simone has been talking about you and all the awesome things that you've done, I would imagine you're getting lots of phone calls and lots of requests.
Yeah, at times, but I keep it low key.
Okay, that humility, humility.
Vinasia's being very humble in regards to just different networking aspects or networking engagements. I've been seeing you on a couple different flyers and websites. So I was going to say, definitely shine your light, Vinasia.
Right.
Shine your light.
Well, Nina Simone, I know you know Vinasia personally, but for all of our guests, Vinasia, tell us a bit about, your background and kind of what led to the founding of the
Forbes the Culture.
Forbes the Culture,
Yeah.
so that they all know what Nina Simone already knows about all the great things that you've done.
No problem. So a little bit about me. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Not born, but raised in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. And since then, I am a Cheney University graduate. I graduated there some years back as the valedictorian of my class.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Proud HBCU grad, huge advocate for HBCUs, always pushing students to go there. And as Nina said, I am also a professor, so I actually
Way to give back.
Yes,
right?
gave back and went to my alma mater for teaching there. So I teach in the areas of business, from management and marketing to some other areas of business in that department. So it's been a good time. And as for Forbes the Culture, that was, I would say, it was nothing but God. I am always faith first.
Yes.
For me to be positioned in that place, in order for that to take place, it was pretty organic as far as building Forbes the Culture. I also did it with my co-founder. We're both the founders of Forbes the Culture, Rashad Lambert. And through all of that, it was definitely done organically in a way just to bring people together, people that look like us. Knowing from the history of Forbes, which we all can see, we all know about the Forbes list, we know about Forbes, but to have representation in a way to show that, okay, there's someone that looks like me that's there. And that's something that truly mattered to us. And from there, it was just like, okay, let's build community. Let's have people come together in a way that it feels like home. It feels like family. It doesn't feel like we have to be uptight or hold a certain title or position. We can just come together and vibe no matter what our backgrounds are. And then just stand firm in that. So it was all done organically, and we've been able to build and grow since then.
So just a question on that, Vinasia, Forbes the Culture. In regards to going to a HBCU, we build that sense of community there. And as you were speaking, going to Forbes, you wanted to recreate that in that environment. Something I would love to know more, and I know our listeners would love to know more, is how did you go about pitching that? Because I know that it's an official thing now, and probably, as you said, it was organic, and you just wanted to build community. How did you pitch it? And then how did you also make sure it's sustained as a community of that was the true sense
of the culture, right?
Right.
So we hear the term or this phrase or statement, however you want to say it, the motto for the culture. And being as though it was brought together at the Forbes Under 30 conference in 2017, it was just play on words. We were at Forbes, so let's just say Forbes the culture, for the culture. And I would say throughout that process, it wasn't necessarily a pitch. It wasn't a pitch. It wasn't something that we were trying to sell to them.
Gotcha.
It was more or less, we need you. And through that, it was more or less saying, okay, I know you guys kind of did this on your own, just bringing people together, and in the sense of just saying, let's get together. Let's get the Black and brown folks together. But it brought awareness and it created a buzz to the sense that Forbes had eyes on us, and they were just like, well, what is this? Right. And how can we bring them to become a part of us? Because if they did not, then it could be a stigma that could be placed on them to say, okay, well, we don't like Black people, or we don't like brown people, we're not inclusive, or on any of those things. So being at the Forbes Under 30 Summit again, just having more and more faces that looked like us being present and showing up and showing out, it was just like, can't beat them, join them.
You know what just sounds so interesting to me is that you were there at this conference and you saw a problem.
Right? Yes.
Right.
Problem
you saw a problem,
yeah.
right? And you're looking around like, where am I reflected on one of these lists? Where are diverse people who are a part of this community?
Exactly.
And I loved how you said that you weren't trying to sell them on anything. You were helping them to understand why they were needed and why they needed you all.
Exactly.
So where is the mutual benefit, right? You saw this problem, you all have a solution for the problem, and now you're helping them understand their role in solving the problem with the solution that you all offered. And all of that happened organically right there during the conference.
Organically, yes. Rashad and I had met at the conference in 2017, and from then we just were like, okay, there's a few of us here. We're seeing a few faces. I was already networking, making my way throughout the crowds, really gathering a lot of contacts that morning. And by the time him and I had met, he's like, okay, let's get a couple of us together. Let's pull up at a spot pretty much and just let's convene. And from there, we expected, he expected initially like 25, and he said 25 to 30, maybe. And close to 300 showed up that night. So throughout the night, it was close to 300, and we ended up taking up the 2 floors of the place. Yeah, so by the end of the night, there's a big photo at the end of the night that was after midnight where there's a large group of us, but it didn't encapsulate everyone that was there that night. So it was just a good time.
Wow.
I just would love to dive a little bit deeper, because I know you were sharing that, right, your intent wasn't to make it a business or a company. It was just, right, you just saw the gap and you wanted to provide a solution. Community. So just, I guess, walking me through how did this structure becoming a business? Like, did you have to put together a business plan, or like, how did that?
We pretty much just was going with the flow as it was coming. To be 100% honest, things just started coming together. A lot of the contacts that were developed during that time, some that I had in Boston, because that's where it started in 2017, just they had continued to reach out for the following conference to say, okay, let's plan some events to this and let's have it take a little bit more root. But no, it kind of just happened from that first night. They wanted more, and they're like, let's continue to connect and build.
You know what, though? I'm just hearing you keep going back to networking.
Right.
And it sounds like it's something that's just so natural for you, that you collect people and you collect cards. But not everybody has that skill.
Yeah.
Not everybody really knows how to do that. So if you were to think of like the top 3 ways that you personally network, those, I think I've heard some trends in what you're saying, but I'd love to hear what you think. You're like, hey, here are my top 3 secret success, or, top 3 pointers. But like how you personally network.
So if I were to break it down into 3 points, I would say 1, being true to yourself, being authentic. You can't sell someone else for you. You have to show up as you first. Just through the different connections that have been made over time, I would say just showing up as myself is what allowed them to welcome me into their space, honestly. Not necessarily trying to take anything from them as well, because oftentimes we get into those networking circles and people are automatically like, what do you do? And I shy away from that a bit. I want to know your name. I want to know who you are before getting into what the titles and all the decorations are. And I think that's something that stands true, showing people that they matter, being genuine in that. So being authentic and true to yourself, being genuine and actually wanting to learn who the person is before getting into the depths of what they do and sizing people up. Because oftentimes when you hear those titles or you hear where people work, it's like, okay. Or people get really amped up, and then it shows if they actually want to take that card or get that contact. So those are two. And then always follow up. Following up with people. There's treasure in the follow-up, I would say. There's treasure in the follow-up. Because it's one thing to collect their contact, but if you don't appreciate the fact that you actually connected with them to bring a remembrance, because sometimes when we're in big spheres of people, what was memorable about them? Or how were you memorable to them so that they remember that you guys had a conversation? So being authentic to yourself, being genuine and getting to know the person before the titles and what they do. And then also, I would say just following up, there's treasure in the follow-up.
You know, as you were talking, it made me think of a comment someone told me that relationships are like bank accounts. And if you never make a deposit, you can't make a withdrawal. So as you were talking, I think each of those talk about depositing in people. Depositing in yourself and being authentic in how you show up, right? Taking the time to really get to know and connect with that person, depositing in them, listening to them, and then being honest of your word and following up and valuing that interaction. And all of those are like, you know, you're putting your credit in that relationship and growing that relationship and not just thinking about it transactionally. So I really love those 3 pointers that you outlined.
And that was good. Relationships are like bank accounts. That's good. I like that.
Yes,
that's a gem.
I was going to say, so I know that's been more on your personal side and you building your relationships in regards to a vertical area, but in regards to you being a professor, how has networking or building relationships and how has that shifted, or what does that look like, and how are you, I don't know, inspiring our
up and coming young minds,
next generation networkers?
Yes, I tell them that the skill, similar to what the points were here, I mean, that's something that I echo in the classroom. I mean, I never thought that I would be a professor. That's like a complete joke to me, actually. Not a joke as far as being in the classroom, but I never envisioned it. It wasn't like on my vision board, but God has a way of telling, if you tell him what you're not going to do, he will show up in a different way and laugh. So I come from educators. So my father is also a professor and he's a doctor. So within that, growing up in that space, and he also works at the same institution.
Really?
So, yeah. So I grew up there. Okay. So it's like a legacy part. Yeah. So even within that, and then my mom's also an educator and is a principal in a local district. So I steer clear from ever wanting to be in a classroom. So when the opportunity presented itself, it's like, okay, this is my way of giving back. And just giving them those same tools, like just to show up as you, and don't take advantage of the experience that you have right now. And in the current times that we're in with COVID and the fatigue of the students, it can be a draw. It can be a draw with them being in the classroom because that's something that they didn't do too much in the previous years. And just learning through those things, I'm like, you guys got to connect with people. You got to get out of your rooms. You got to talk to people.
From the virtual
exactly. And I tell them that in a way to not only develop them personally, but even in a professional sense. You have to get to know people and don't take advantage of the person that's next to you, because they can hold that baton to your next job, to your next connection. You never know who you know. And there's definitely relationship currency there.
Well, look, I'm already going to count on this relationship because I want a whole slew of Shaney students coming over to my programming within innovation and entrepreneurship, because everything that you talked about taking advantage of opportunities and the networking. So Nina Simone, you have a new campus coordinator that you're going to work with so I can get my next Nina Simone. But the points that you're outlining and what you are, I mean, from your own experience and what you're sharing with your current students, these are really things that can last them throughout their career. It's not just networking the here and now, but it's like the sustainability of their career as they engage and figure out what they're going to do at that particular phase of their professional development.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know, because you just seem so natural in regards to like building relationships and networking. Are you an introvert or extrovert? Which one would you say?
You know, I'm in between, so I would like to call myself
omnivore.
Or omnivore, ambivert, whatever they want to call it. But I would say within that space, there's times where I'll need my moments to recharge, and I just am like, I don't want to deal with the slew of people right now. And then I thrive in those same environments, so I'm right in the middle. I would say I'm right in the middle.
Do you think your networking style is influenced because of your engagement of people or how you pull your energy?
I would say so, because I can relate to both, or at least try to have an ability to relate to if they're introvert, if they're not. And I'm one to try to get someone who is extremely introverted to come out a little bit more, get out of their shell, reel them in to actually want to talk to people. Because sometimes when people are just to themselves, they're super shy, and some people don't even give them a chance to speak up and speak out for themselves. So being in those spaces, I try to pull from both. Yeah.
And I asked that just because in regards to like us going to Cheney University, which is a smaller school, just the idea of networking, it's kind of like, you know who you know. So maybe it might be a little bit challenging or not disencouraging, but when you're getting out there in the field and networking in spaces that you might not know, it's really good to know yourself or know how you navigate. Are you a person that, you know, not require, but is more comfortable when people come up to you and introduce themselves? Or do you got to get out of your shoes and put yourself out there and
I put myself out there every time. I don't mind.
There's definitely a level of confidence. Level of confidence there.
I'm going to shoot my shot. You know, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So just going to speak with people, there's times where I'm very discerning and I can feel the vibe of things, you know? So just seeing who's going to be welcoming to that or not. Just having a good sense of people. And just observing. So I'm very observant when I go into certain spaces to know who is going to be standoffish if I just come straight at them or not. It's not like I'm just very forceful within the conversation. It's easing in, just seeing what could be natural, or just having that common interest or focus, or even if it's like, oh, I like this sweater, that's cute, girl. And then it starts the conversation.
Right. And I think also you have a good sense of who you are. Who you are and what your strengths are. And I think the question that you just asked, Nina Simone, tied into that as well, of being clear about who you are, how you interact with people, how you want to show up. And part of, I think, the first process in figuring out your networking style is first being clear with yourself, right? And I'm hearing this trend as you all talk about it, like, okay, do you like being the one to just walk up? I'm like you. I'm a walk up. I walk up to strangers. I'm going to shoot my shot. Whereas someone else, they may have to be invited to engage in how. But be honest with yourself and then put yourself in places where you can work on the things you're comfortable with and then work on the things that are not so comfortable.
Right. And that goes back to the authenticity part, you know, being true to yourself.
Right.
Know you. And don't be so quick to throw yourself in environments where you're like, I don't think I should go after that. But then also it goes back to the point of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable as well. Because sometimes if you're not uncomfortable, you're not going to start. You're not going to launch. You're not going to go in advance, and you're not going to grow. Right. So sometimes you have to take those steps to get uncomfortable and be comfortable with that.
Right.
So do you think that there are particular organizations or opportunities that young people, your students, but that they should be doing to work on these skills, to work on being uncomfortable, to work on networking?
Well, I would say for our university, we actually start them out in their foundation through certain academic learning communities to help them with their personal and professional development. And then also just for me, as far as my students, just teaching them some of those things outside of the classroom so that they can start to get used to it. And you can kind of see who got it and who doesn't, or who needs a little bit of work.
Who needs some coaching?
Yeah, who needs some coaching? Absolutely. So throughout that process, I would say that, of course, just putting yourself in the mix, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, even if that's just going to student mixers, getting to know people coming out of their rooms in the dorms. That's something that's big because so many students that I've spoke to even this year alone, they're like, well, one thing that I would have done different was get out my room a little bit more. When I asked them their reflections of their semester or within the school year, what would they have done differently? And then also just doing their research on certain things that fit them, what their interests are, getting involved in different extracurricular activities on campus. I push that in my class like all the time, no lie. I'm like, you guys need to check their website frequently and sign up. Because
Thank you for letting them know.
Yeah, and that's not just because it's you guys, but I do it all the time because I'm like, you never know where you can end up just by taking that shot.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
I know, Nina Simone, you were super active when you were a student at Cheney, and then, of course, took advantage of our programming. And it sounds like there's structure there within the educational community. On top of kind of the educational piece with the extracurricular, what are some other suggestions you would have about the network? And I know Vinasia outlined that there's the academic communities, but extracurricular or other organizations that you think have really been helpful with networking.
I would definitely say, utilizing what's on your campus. So whether it's the planning committees or the different organizations, even Greek Life, seeing if that's something that is of a networking aspect that you should pursue, to the point of going to Cheney University. And it is one of the smaller HBCUs. The network can only be as big, but when you submerge yourself, going to the Leadership Institute, going to the pitch competition, going to the other innovative challenges, you're meeting other HBCU students. You're finding out what's going on their campus. Maybe they have a sleepover night committee, something going on somewhere else, and you bring that back to your community. So just, again, going back to the networking aspect, you don't know what you don't know, and someone can be that key to unlock the information that you don't know. So those are some, I would definitely say, put yourself out there and just go for it. Yeah. Try something, even if you don't think you're eligible or you don't think you have the skill set. 9 times out of 10, the place you're going to is a thing or it's an experience that's happening because they want to elevate you and empower you to become and unlock the skill set.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I want to go back to something you said earlier, that your father's a professor on campus. Yeah. And you grew up there. Yes. And now you're back on campus teaching there. So the little version of Vinasia never envisioned the professor version of Vinasia, but now you're there and you're doing that and you're pouring into your students. What do you see next for yourself as you're networking and building your career? What's your next step?
Outside of that, I also I have an agency that deals with marketing and branding and management. So that is called Air Visions. So just doing some consulting work, not just for companies, but for nonprofits, schools, and individuals that are looking to build. So I'm going to continually grow that. In addition to just connecting the dots, I'm big on passing the baton, making sure that people are afforded similar opportunities and greater opportunities that I've even had. So from the student realm, even to you. Just making sure that we're able to pour into each other. It's all about the reciprocated pour, I would say, because if you're always pouring out, you're left empty. You have to be able to have someone else to pour into you. So not just from the lateral sense, and but just allowing for people to come together and being able to give that pour.
Right. I know one of the things that we've talked a lot about is really like those first 5 years out of college. That's a very difficult time, right? And figuring out what you're doing. And along that way, you've had a lot of success and you've started your own company and you're a professor. How did you figure out how to do that? Actually set the company up and organize all of these pieces?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have to do my due diligence and do my research, but you know, I'm still figuring things out. I'm sure we can all say that. We're constantly learning, forever student, always a forever student. Absolutely. And through that, I would just say, just doing the research and, you know, pouring into myself in a way just to continually learn and figure some things out. I mean, when I came out of Cheney, I would say from undergrad, I went straight in to graduate school. And some would say, oh, you're always in school. You're always doing something, just through the master's degrees that I hold and then certifications and all those things. And then to be in the classroom was just like, oh, you just couldn't get enough of school. Then now you're teaching. So I would say throughout that process, it's been rewarding. And yeah, it is tough. Just figuring it out, being a student, because like I said, I didn't go straight into the workforce. I went straight into graduate school while still trying to work with that. So it was a little bit different from my journey.
I think just being honest about that is important as well, because especially in our day and age, everybody's on social media and their lives all look perfect. Yeah. And you're like watching them and it's like, oh, they're doing this and that. And you don't see the sweat behind the post. You don't see all of that. Yeah. And not everyone is honest saying, okay, I went this route versus that route. And there are some pros and cons to that. And here were some challenges and difficulties along the way. So I love that you're just being very authentic and transparent about that, and that was part of your journey. Yeah,
I embrace it. That was a time, I would say. Continuing with school, some people would call me crazy for it because they're like, didn't you just finish and you're going back again and again and again?
I love to learn.
Yeah, it's through that process, just figuring it out. And then also networking throughout the process, because I went to Cheney. I had the HBCU experience, but I also had the PWI experience by going to Penn State for both my master's degrees as well as some certifications that I've earned along the way. So everyone's journey is different, you know. Don't get caught up on the Instagram reels or the highlight reels, because people are going to only show you what they want you to see.
That's part of the branding.
Yeah, that is part of the branding. For real, it's part of the branding. Some things, don't believe everything you see either.
I actually want to jump back to the Forbes for the culture. Forbes the culture. Yes. I want to jump back because I know when we were prepping for this conversation, Nina Simone, you talked about how you actually use tools like that to grow your network. And I'll be honest, I didn't know Forbes the culture before Nina Simone told me about it. Probably because I'm of a different generation. But
no, we have a mixed crowd.
Okay, tell me.
It's multi-generational, so it's not just targeted towards millennial and Gen Z. We have some of the
I don't even know what category I fall in.
We have some Gen X. We have some boomers. Some seasoned folks. You know, you're not that seasoned though.
But I know you were talking about like how to watch those types of lists and how to pay attention to selecting mentors and selecting people you want in your network. Is that something that you actively do? I mean, you're in this field, so are you actively watching what other people are doing and how they're keeping up, or are you just staying really focused on kind of your own journey and path?
I'm observant to see what's going on, but I don't spend a bulk of time just checking on to see what everyone's doing. I mean, I stay abreast on the different trends and what some are doing and how they're emerging throughout the space, but I also stay in my lane. So,
and knowing what it is.
Yeah, knowing what it is. And through that, I mean, some of the people that I meet along the way just get connected to some of the ones that are emerging and growing throughout that space. So I would say I'm current on seeing what's going on, but I don't fully immerse myself on constantly checking what
I like that balance though. It's like I'm current, I'm aware. I'm aware because that's part of curating my craft, but I'm not going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And totally immersing myself that I lose
what I'm doing.
Right.
Lose the focus.
Lose the focus.
Yeah, I think that's necessary. Not to lose focus and stay in your lane in that process, because your journey is not theirs. You can be inspired by them. I'm very keen to being inspired by the work that people are doing, and I congratulate them proudly. And I will be the cheerleader but I also know that I'm on my own race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm on my own race, and that's no shade to them, but
Right.
you know, we got to keep it moving.
Right. Staying focused on that.
Yeah.
So just really quick one to circle back, Vinasia. What advice would you give to students that are still trying to navigate discovering their entrepreneurial path?
I would say, similar to what I said before, you know, keep running your own race and being true to yourself throughout that process. Don't be afraid of failure because there's times where we're going to fall short. There's times where we're going to hit bumps in the road. It's not always
part
a straight,
of the process.
Yeah, it's not always going to be a straight road. And embracing the process, you know, sometimes we see the end goal, we see the finish line, but no one wants to do the work. No one wants to be in the lane of in the process. They don't want to embrace that fully. They just want to get to the finish line. And throughout that process, it's just saying, okay, embrace the process as you grow. And through that process, you'll build character. You'll build resilience. You'll build some of the skills that some of your leaders and iconic faces have done as well, that it didn't just end up in their lap.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nina Simone, for bringing one of your Cheney mates. I think I just made that word up. I guess so. Cheney mate. That's cute. I love it. But if people, I know you mentioned your company, if people want to learn more about you, clearly your students know what you're doing there on campus here. And for our students who want to find out more about your business and more about you, where can they get that information?
Okay. Feel free to follow me on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, at Vinasia Miles, Vinasia Miles. And feel free to contact me. I'll be sure to contact you guys back.
This has been such a great episode of Who's Next, Innovators Edition.
Tune in next time to see who's next.